This may not happen the entire season, let alone the entire off-season calendar year at any point. So we are going to do it right now. We are leading the Big Ten Live Show with Purdue. We're just going to do it. I saw this and I thought, hey, Purdue's leading off tonight. Here we go. Big news. Big news. It actually is. I'm not kidding by that much. Purdue with the latest commit on the board. Dwayne Galloway. Don't make the mistake of saying Dwayne Galloway. Dwayne Galloway, 6'1", 175 cornerback out of Columbus, Ohio. Marion Franklin, 22nd rated cornerback in the country. A top 150 to 200 player. Purdue doesn't get a whole lot of those guys. Top 10 player in the state of Ohio. 29 offers for Galloway. If I could get this to click, it's not. That's strange. There we go. Offers coming in from the likes of Kentucky, Syracuse, West Virginia, Arkansas, Auburn, Colorado, Georgia, Illinois, Marshall, Maryland, Michigan State, Mizzou, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Wisconsin, UCF. Dwayne Galloway is going to Purdue, at least as of today, unless he flips. And the favorite response to commitments and possible flips these days is, of course, unless somebody drops a bag. All the truth to that and the money figures that are being thrown around, I don't know. I've asked a lot of people that I'm not going to say are in the midst of it, but have their contacts that are in the midst of it, right in the middle of it. And they can't even give a great figure. Apparently, this is not coming from me. This is coming from other folks that I converse with, that those On3 numbers, and I credit On3, at least in regards to the initiative, I credit On3 for taking the initiative of this entire, and I'm not really up on it because I don't check out their recruiting rankings much, but the NIL value that they give to the player, I don't think that has to do much with the actual payout to the player, but it's a value that they guesstimate based on their evaluation of the player. Before I forget, I want to give a special thank you to Neil Campbell. And so if Neil's in the chat tonight, or if he comes into the chat a little bit later, somebody be so kind to inform me, let me know. So special thank you to Neil Campbell tonight here at the Voice of College Football. Wolfpack Nevada fan, you know what? Because of that. So I was 15 minutes late because my stage manager did not show up tonight. Did not, just a no call. No call, no show. You get 3 of those, right? Isn't that wise as a boss? 3 no call, no shows. And so I had to work the Big Ten motif as I did right here. All right. So in honor of Neil Campbell tonight, sorry, Badgers. You are as of last season. No, you're not. Nebraska is. Nebraska is the worst team up here as of last season. No question. So we'll give the Wolfpack some love in honor of Neil Campbell. You see on the ticker down below, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. That's the most effective way to contribute to the Voice of College Football. And I will do a much better job. And I was thinking about this today. for those who do contribute that way. And I know not all of you want credit or acknowledgement for your donations. Many of you do, and that's cool too. You should get recognition and as they say in the industry, a shout out. You should get that. Some of you don't want it, but Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, I will be doing a scan of those platforms here in 2024 to acknowledge and round up those names who have contributed to us here at the Voice of College Football. Doesn't happen often. So if you are contributing or have contributed on one of those three platforms, it's not like the donations are flooding in by the day, but I am so appreciative of those that do think of that, because that shows a great deal of thoughtfulness out of all of you, whether you contribute that way or through the super chat. So thank you so much for your generosity. All right, a couple things. One was that we did a realignment take. That was just last night, right? Yes, it was. We decided to do that after all the fireworks and festivities on July 4th. So I didn't even get to the portion of that was the intent of the show. And that was to go through your realignment models, or at least the ones that have come in through the comments sections. Although we had some astute calls last night. I am telling you, 2 or 3 people in particular that had models that, sure, 1 or 2 of them, I did poke a hole or 2 or Swiss cheesed them, shredded them, but the initiative and the approach, I thought in all of them was point on, representing college football nation, not representing the media companies, not representing where this is headed, but representing what is the heart of most college football fans, and that's to get back to regionality. So there were some great models, and one in particular by a Nebraska fan that I got to say, if I go back to the 6 conferences that I set up, 12 teams per conference, 12 times 6, 72 teams that would make the power structure, and this was like 5 years ago. I should post that video. Should just repost the thing. I think it probably needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I think a few things have changed, and maybe some other programs have surpassed a few of the bottom rungs in my structure, the format that I built 4 or 5 years ago. So we'll have to look at that. But it was very much in line with my model. And so this is realignment week. So check out the videos that we have posted for the Big Ten at 20. The SEC at 20, the Big 12 all the way up to a double Big 12. The Big 12 is selling itself out to a corporate sponsor to name the league anyway. They could have fun with a double 12 with a 2014 league. Oh, all sorts of fun with that logo. The graphic designers would be just jumping off the walls, jumping off the ceiling just to be able to get a shot at designing that one, the double 12, Big 12. But we're going to keep churning them out. And so we're going to get to the viewer comments. You are certainly welcome to join us here at the Voice of College Football. Give me a call. And also, we will take your comments and questions, of course. Notre Dame's on the top rung. They are separate from everyone else. They are the desired entity for the Big Ten. If you disagree with me, please call or send in a super chat if you can succinctly explain your position, why Notre Dame is not the most valued commodity out there. And when I say out there, I mean that is a likely candidate to join a conference, meaning the ACC is teetering and the top echelon, the elite of the ACC are in the marketplace. And then besides that, it's pretty much Notre Dame. Certainly, if the Big Ten or the SEC warranted, if they desired somebody from the Big 12, they could have them at any point. But I don't believe they do. there are times, there was rumblings about 6 weeks ago about Kansas going to the SEC. So anyway, if you believe in any way that Notre Dame is not the most valued commodity on the college football landscape that is eligible to move to the Big Ten, then please let me know. Now, I am not saying that there aren't Notre Dame fans who want Notre Dame to stay an independent. I'm not talking about what do you want, talking about them being the most likely candidate, not necessarily the most likely candidate, the most valued, desired for the Big Ten. Don't think we need to explain that. Now, from the Notre Dame perspective, I don't want Notre Dame to be independent. They should be in a conference, but I totally understand their viewpoint. And if you're a Notre Dame fan who wants to stay independent, I totally get it. Not blaming you in any way. I would probably want to stay independent as well. There is a certain cachet. Notre Dame is the last one standing. They are independent. There is just something about that independent status of we can do what we want. We will schedule whom we want, when we want, where we want. We do not have to make decisions and be one of 14 votes. Now, of course, Notre Dame is subject to that in all the other sports as a member of the ACC. They are subject to that. But my pecking order off the top of my head, and I had my intent was to be a little bit more structured than this, but we have posted so many videos about this in regards to setting up every prospect, every candidate, North Carolina, for example, and looking at their current football prowess, their history on the football field, their recent history, their trajectory, their potential, their recruiting base, their media market, the viewership on television and streaming, the academic institution, the other athletic programs, and North Carolina being a great example because basketball separates them. Basketball is a default position for the other schools. You're going to make money when you pick up the basketball program. If you determine to pick up Virginia or Georgia Tech, the basketball program is going to be, they're going to make money, but it's not significant enough to choose, okay, Wake Forest is going to make us $1.2 million in basketball and Virginia is going to make us $1.35 million. It's not a deciding factor in most cases. Duke, different. North Carolina, definitely different. And maybe a few others. I'm excited to let you know that these are my notes from the Elvis Pearl Harbor concert. I was invited onto Elvis Nation. We recorded today. Good times. I'll let you know when that is posted. I was going to post today an ACC survival. The worst case scenario for the ACC, and I know this is a Big Ten live show, but the worst case scenario for the ACC would be obviously extinction, not distinction, extinction, Mark. Obviously all the big brands leave and then the rest of it crumbles and they scatter. I think the conference survives when everybody of value leaves, which could be as little as 4 schools: Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Miami, or it could be as many as 7 or 8. Tack on Virginia Tech, NC State, Louisville. Then maybe it even gets to Pitt going to the Big 12. Maybe I'm missing somebody there. Georgia Tech possibly. And then maybe we get to a situation where, unless, like we talked about last night, the Big Ten and the SEC just take it all over and say, we're actually going to keep all these teams, or almost all of them, and make it a massive AFC, NFC deal. And then the Boston Colleges and Syracuse's and the Wake Forest are saved. And maybe even they pick up some more It's not value to the TV contract, so I don't see that happening. But maybe the ACC settles into some strange, I don't even want to call it a super American conference, because the American Conference at the top from about 2012, 2013, UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, Tulane near the end, always had one, maybe two teams that could compete nationally to some level, to a top 15 level, top 20 level. So the American Conference, they positioned themselves in a very good spot, but unfortunately they got picked apart. It didn't last long, and they got picked apart, and the Big 12 took their best programs. Maybe the ACC survives by maintaining what is left at about 10 schools, and then they pick up Tulane, Memphis. Those, for me, are the two best candidates. And then maybe, since they've got Stanford and Cal, they make a decision. And Stanford and Washington State and Oregon State would have the decision. Is it better for us to attach to the Mountain West and stay in this region and play our entire athletic program right here in this region? That would be best for the athletic program. But can we make just that much more money in football? And we do have two schools out here that we have running histories with, longtime history, Stanford and Cal, will attach to the ACC, and we'll all be a happy family from coast to coast. So working on that. All right. So in regards to the Big Ten going forward, and we're going to post a poll. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but we're staying on this realignment subject, but you can call me about anything. Call me about anything concerning the Big Ten, which I'm also excited here at the Voice of College Football. We will be releasing a program schedule for the season here in about a month. We are going to be driving every day. We'll be here. Of course we will. We're here every day in the off season. Okay. So yeah, let's look at some of these models that came in. We will check any comments or questions. Don't see anything there. Okay, here we go. Oh, what happened here? My video ran out. Okay, so we don't want that. This is what we're looking for. Don't need to see double mark. Richard Morris, 8745. Solution, 24 teams, 4 6-team divisions. You play your division every year and rotate the other 3 each year. 4 6-team divisions. So you play the other 5 teams and you rotate the other 3. He only wants 8 conference games. Richard, am I getting that right? The Big Ten just got rid of conferences. James McKenzie, 9529. I believe you're talking about divisions, sir. They did not get rid of their conference. They got rid of divisions. We could now have games like Ohio State, Oregon. We could have Ohio State and Oregon. Otherwise, there were no 2 teams in the Big Ten who were not playing before. There is not a selling point of going back to severely limiting the games that can be played. Okay. This is all easy to say if you don't build the structure yourself. To pinpoint something and say, we want to see Ohio State and Oregon play all the time. That's all well and good. But you also have to be fair and equitable in the scheduling. You can't just say, okay, we got a conference of 22 teams now. We're just going to line them all up 1 through 22. And you know what? USC and Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, just make sure they all play all the time every year. No, it's not going to work that way. It shouldn't work that way. Look at this. Kurt is suggesting that non-conference games go away completely. You just play a straight conference-only schedule, which if you've got 20 teams in the conference, you're going to play 12 games. You're still going to miss 7 opponents within the conference. You're not going to play anyone out of the conference. I hate that. It makes for a more legitimate and valid championship in the conference, but to never watch out of conference games, none. I know we've got a playoff and we've got bowl games, but hey, I'll go along with the N8, the great. Gee, no way that happens for a number of reasons. Also, it's boring. Bingo. This is entertainment when you get right down to it. There's no chance of that because games like Iowa, Iowa State, Oregon, Oregon State, etc. Yes, USC, Notre Dame. Look at the SEC and the ACC and the games that they play as rivals, chief rivals: Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, Louisville, Clemson, South Carolina. Troy, our buddy Troy V, maybe 4 5-team pods would work. 4 5-team pods. Okay, all 5 teams in your pod play each other. So that's a 4-game schedule, and then rotate pods each year. That way, all teams are playing each other at least every 3 years. Not a fan of more expansion. So he likes the NFL model of AFC, NFC. This year, the NFC East plays the AFC North. And then they rotate and they play the next division the next year. Well, if the divisions are balanced from a competitive standpoint, that would be key in putting that model together, because you would want your out-of-division games to be fair, for that scheduling to be generally fair. Nothing's ever completely fair because you can't see the future. Steven says pods would be the answer. You would play the 4 in your pod yearly. So now we've got, he's going with 5 teams as well, then 2 from each of the other pods. So he's got a different schedule set up. And we've done this before. So maybe I look like a knucklehead posting a video going to divisions, but I did mention this and I did display it, although I didn't dive into it. And we did this years ago. Like when USC and UCLA jumped on, and then Oregon, Washington, we've got all sorts of videos with pods. And then, of course, adding more teams and what that could look like, whether that's just Notre Dame, which is probably not going to happen at this point because 19 teams is a little, it can be done. People get caught up in even numbers. The Big Ten went with 13 for a long time. Almighty 5 looks like Florida State going all over the country. I'm ready for Florida State to the Big Ten. Mark 8337 believes the Big Ten will get to 22 to 24 teams. I have my best guesses on those 4 to 6. However, I do not favor going back to any divisions or pods. He just wants them all lined up. Actually, if they expand the playoffs to 16 teams, I prefer to have no conference championship game. I'm okay with that too. I love the conference championship games, but I think they've run their course. And I think with the expanded playoff, and I'm just speaking off the cuff because I've not thought of it that way until now, I'd have to give a final answer later. This is not my final answer, but I'm inclined to say get rid of the conference championship games. The larger these conferences get, and then if one team has the best record in the conference, they are the conference champion. If there is a tie for the best record and there is a head-to-head, Differentiation, then you can either go with a split championship or say the head-to-head winner is the conference champion. If it's a tie, guess what? For years and years and years and years and years, we had ties for conference championships all over the place. Big Ten fans, you know it as well as anyone. The last Big Ten championship we had that was shared was in 2010. You've got Wisconsin, who went to the Rose Bowl, Michigan State and Ohio State tied for the Big Ten championship in 2010. And I think I've got a pretty educated guess that there are actually more shared Big Ten championships than outright Big Ten championships in the history of the conference. Go Blue 636. 2 divisions of 10 teams is a bad idea. Just keep it the way it is. No divisions. Again, I understand the viewpoint, but there are problems with that. Keep Chopping says no thanks on divisions. Rutgers finally got away from Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Rutgers will probably win at least 10 games this year. What? Rutgers will probably win at least 10 games this year. At least. 10's the floor. 10's the floor for Rutgers this year. Chopping is letting us know. Keep Chopping is letting us know. He might be in the chat. That's the floor for Rutgers this year. We're getting a bit snooty as a Rutgers fan here, where the floor is 10-2. And I understand somebody in the league office loves Greg Schiano. No Ohio State, no Michigan, no Penn State, no Iowa. Those might be the 4 best. No, Oregon. Those might be the 5 best teams in the conference. They do have USC. They possibly missed the 5 best teams. That's not a balanced schedule. That's not correct. Somebody screwed up. That's just doesn't make any sense. Or they just figure Rutgers is not a factor anyway, so what does it matter? Give them a year off. Let them feel good about this change in scheduling. Keep Chopping. It's not always going to be like this. It's not always going to be like this. Actually, out of the 5 I just mentioned, you will play at least 2, if not 3 of those every other year if the schedule is approached the right way. We got our guy Joe Long, who says the Big Ten sucked until this silly merge. Okay. All right, so we'll keep moving on here. We've got Jackson Vaughn, 4 divisions with 5 teams each. Every year the divisions are paired up. Okay, that seems like another version of the AFC and the NFC. The best team from these 10 games meets in the Big Ten championship game. With any of these, it is crucial what the tiebreakers are. So while you think you've got it, yes, you may be able to implement that, but you've got to have a tiebreaker system. There will be ties. F.U. Cuddly. Yeah, that's some name. I think it'd make sense for the Big Ten to add Notre Dame and Stanford. Then you don't play in divisions. Each team has 4 locked-in opponents based on, okay, I am completely against having a set number and the same number of set opponents or rivalries for every team. I hate that. The SEC did it for years. The ACC did it for years up until last season. It doesn't work. It's stupid. Not every team has the same number of rivals. There is no reason to force rivalries or force matchups every year. That prohibits scheduling flexibility. It prohibits those teams from playing other teams that are just as important to them. For example, in the ACC, for years and years and years, from the time they added all these teams and went to divisions and had to match up quote unquote rivals, which Florida State, Miami, yes. North Carolina State, yes. A few of them, yes. Virginia Tech, Boston College. No reason Virginia Tech should be playing Boston College 6 times more than they play Clemson or anybody else. South Carolina and Texas A&M. No, they are not rivals. They don't need to be matched up every year just for the sake of matching up everybody with somebody. Don't agree with that. I beat the drum for this and I got my way. Not that they listened to me, but I did get my way in that the Big Ten has determined designated opponents for every team, and it's not the same. Penn State has none. Iowa has 3. Jeremy Gonzalez says you have to compare records playing against the other division. Otherwise, a comparison makes no sense. Okay, I did that. The Big Ten Eastern Division only defeated the Big Ten Western Division 91-78 in looking backward over the last 10 seasons. It was not as egregious as people claim it to be. Peter Curtis, Colorado alum here, with all the bias that comes with that allegiance. It seems like 20 teams is good, but 24 would be better. Add Notre Dame, then take the foremost Big Ten schools left on the board and grab them. That's Virginia, North Carolina, Colorado, and Utah. You would then have a presence in and third viewing window for TV, with owning the rapidly growing Mountain Times. So, in my opinion, the Mountain Time Zone becomes insignificant once the Pacific Time Zone was grabbed. So once you leap over that time zone, you're including that time zone in all games and kickoffs. Like, you're not suspending the games for an hour and not playing. So the Mountain Time Zone is covered. It's covered by the 4 teams that play on the West Coast and overlapped by the Central Time Zone. Like, it's sandwiched in between. Here we've got somebody else in Larry Bass who wants no non-conference games. None. Sam Malone, 4766. I can't believe you picked Illinois at 16 this year in the conference. All right. Well, Sam, you did not listen to the video. It's a power ranking. It's not a prediction. I did not pick anything. I've not made any predictions. You will hear my predictions at some point. We will get to our predictions. I've not made any predictions. Enzo Maressi, any setup that helps knock Iowa down to where it should be. 3 to 4 losses per year is where the world would and should be. Oh, he's got it out for Iowa. Cazito, I will probably get hate for this, but I'd love the SEC and the Big Ten to both expand to 20 and split from the rest, create their own league with them as the 2 conferences like the AFC and the NFC. Then give me a 14-game regular season with 11 conference games with a 3-8-8 scheduling model, whatever that is, a 3-8-8, a 3-8-8, which I guess is, I don't know. No divisions, 3 protections, and everybody plays everybody over a 2-year span. 1 non-con game against a cupcake and 2 non-con games against teams in the other conference that finished around where you finished the previous season, like the NFL does it. That's not the way the NFL does it, but I get your point. That's not the way the NFL does it. Maybe I'm being a little harsh there. You probably understand the way the NFL does it. The way you phrased it there. So the NFL is obviously everything that the NFL does is to try to create parity. So the better you are, the tougher the schedule. The worse you were the previous season, the easier your schedule, for as much as they can possibly manipulate it. They can't control how good your division is. They can't control the division you're playing in the other conference. So there's 2, 4, 6. There are 10 games out of what used to be 16, now 17 in the NFL that the NFL cannot control, but they can control the other 7 now, and they give the bad teams the easier schedules, which I don't agree with doing that either. Propping teams up or suppressing teams that have excelled. No, you should give everyone a fair schedule. So I don't like your deal. I want the Big 12 and the ACC and other conferences to be around, first of all. Secondly, 14-game regular season. Good Lord. Nobody's playing that. Bond 007 fan. I would love Florida State, Notre Dame to come in. Notre Dame is in the heart of the Big Ten. Absolutely. Travel would be a lot easier. Florida State is a good fit for the Big Ten despite distance. Better schedule solution. No non-conference games. Wow. All 12 Big Ten games. I'm surprised at how many people like that. No, thank you. SC 100 OT. So what you're saying is, and then the Pac-10, yes, 1978 all over again, albeit slightly different teams. Radically different teams. So in 1978, Rutgers would not have been involved. Maryland, Penn State, Florida State, Notre Dame, Nebraska. So USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. Well, they would be in the Pac-10. Okay. So the others, so 6 out of the 20. So slightly different teams, except for there is no Pac-10. It's still the Big Ten, but that would be the conference of the western half of the Big Ten. Yes. Oh, we got a call in from Joe Long. Joe's calling. Joe, what's up?
Hey, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Sorry if you were waiting. I had the other window up, so I couldn't see.
I know. It sounds like you're running things by yourself there today.
Every day.
Well, I thought you had a producer or something you mentioned earlier. I don't know.
I was kidding.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that was a joke.
Yeah, over my head. So anyway, I called in to say happy 4th of July to everybody, first of all. And I also mentioned when I first came in that Notre Dame signed a big safety today. I think, have you heard of Jadon Blair?
I have not.
I think he's from Florida, and I think he's a 5-star. If he's
well,
not, he's
we'll find him here.
Yeah, he's got some crazy good highlights. He's listed at 6'4.5", 190 pounds. He's amazingly instinctual to the football. He watches the quarterback's eyes like the kid just turned 17 today, and he declared to Notre Dame today. But imagine this kid was 16 years old. Once you see his highlights, you're going to freak out. He's amazing. So it's a very good sign by Notre Dame today.
Looks like it. We've got him up there. Winston-Salem, Mount Tabor High School.
Oh, yes, that's right. North Carolina. Sorry. That's right. Yeah. He's a 4-star too, huh?
Who else was in the running?
Well, they still have another guy, Taylor, something. His dad played in the NFL that he's supposed to be pretty good safety. And then they're looking at the kid Farimo from Sarah Catholic in Southern Cal. And then they got Owusu Koromoa, who's the brother of the guy that played at Notre Dame that's in the NFL now. So they have a few more things to do, but they're looking pretty sharp so far for I think that's next year's, not this one coming in. I think this is we're talking about it is the year after this next declaration. So yeah, and they got some really good, like Will Black, I think, is a guy. It's a lineman. That's another 5-star, and Streebig is some kid that's another like high 4-star. So Freeman's doing all the right things that he should be doing. But this isn't actually what I called about. What I called about was because you read out my thing where I said the Big Ten sucks. I over exaggerate that. They don't suck. It's just that there's always the perennial in every conference. In the Big 12, it's Oklahoma, Texas. Now it won't be. But in the SEC, it's Alabama. Georgia wasn't really doing anything since 1980 until these last like 5 or 6 years. So I guess you have to include them as a team. But many teams go through a 6-year run where they're very good at the top of the at the top of the college game, you know. So, you know, what they're doing now is good, but it's not something that's new. People go through those runs, right? So, you know, and Ohio State goes through it.
Joe, I
Michigan's gone
respect your
through it.
opinion, but who else is going through a run like Georgia has over the last 5 years?
Well,
How
that's
often
because,
does that happen?
well,
You're
that's what I
talking
mean.
like
Notre
this just
Dame
happens
from
with everyone. Indiana
Notre
goes
Dame.
through a run like that, and Kansas goes through a run like
Well,
who else is going through? I can only think of one school besides Alabama, and they're a perennial power. But out of the pool of teams that I think you're referring to, which does not include Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, etc.,
well, it does.
is Clemson. Clemson's the only team I can think of that's had that kind of run.
Well, that's another one. I
in
mean,
a
that's
long time.
Yeah, but that's my point. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have played to Georgia's level in the last 5 years. Like they go through runs now. As Georgia still, you know, at the top by getting, you know, 8 5-stars every season, they have a new list of 5-stars. So, you know, they're at a good run, and they're probably going to continue it longer than 5 and 6 years. But my point was 6 years. There's a lot of teams that do it. Ohio State's done it. Michigan's done it. Notre Dame's done it. Alabama's done it.
Okay. Joe, I'm going to challenge you a little bit
Okay,
here.
good.
Okay, because I was going to ask you to start the list. So you've started it. So talking about being one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country for like 7 years.
I didn't say 7.
Who's done this? Ohio State's done it. Clemson's done it. Alabama, of course. Notre Dame did this when?
88 to 94. Actually, 87 when they had the Heisman.
Oh, if you want to go back 35 years.
Well, okay. Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, if you take away Georgia's run, this current run, the last time they won it was 1980.
Sure, the last time they won it, but they've been an elite team on different occasions.
Well, I think this most recent one is where I'd give them the credit for that. I haven't seen them dominate. You know, I have a really good top of the mark run, you know, like other schools have had up until this one. And I'm not taking away from this one. This one's very good, and it's probably going to be a lot longer based on the way they recruit. But we don't know. And then another thing about joining a conference, I used to be for it, and I still probably would like to go to the Big Ten. But I think now with the playoffs, we're going to start seeing a lot of intersectional, you know, games anyway. So, you know, it'll be good to, if they were to join the Big Ten, I wouldn't be against it, really, because I like playing Michigan, and I like playing Ohio State, and I like playing Penn State. You know, I would enjoy that every year, but we won't see it every year. But now, you know, USC and Oregon, I mean, like, it would be fun as hell to join that league. So, but you know, I think we're still going to see a good mix come playoff time of mixing it up a little bit, you know, with the teams.
Yeah, that's going to take the place of big non-conference games. So we all, during this playoff era and before that with the BCS championship game, and that's about all we had, some BCS bowls. It's not going to be so as crucial from a entertainment standpoint to see the top teams in the country schedule each other during non-conference play, because we're going to have these. When you've got 12 teams in a playoff, what is the number? 13 games? Something like that. It's right around the same number of games.
And chances are you'll get a good matchup of teams that you wanted to see anyway.
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame and LSU, you know. I think that'll be fun to be able to see Notre Dame play against Brian Kelly. I mean, you know, that would shut up one side or the other pretty good, I think, you know, as a result of a winner.
So are you in the Notre Dame camp that hates Brian Kelly?
Well, I don't hate him. I think he did, you know, like most people at Notre Dame think he was there when they needed him, and he brought stability to a fledgling program. You know, like they were reeling after you know, Charlie Weiss was supposed to be the guy to come in and do it, and he did for a while. Like he did pretty good, but then it proved that he's really only a good offensive coordinator. Like he's a hell of a quarterback coach. He'll develop a kid and make him great, but you know, as far as leading the entire team, he didn't really care as much about defense, and he didn't put people in that were good enough to take up that slack for him. So he didn't do well. And then Brian Kelly came in, and you know, like he gave better stability to both sides, but he had weaknesses, and it was proved out. He didn't know how to motivate the team, I don't think, and that's a big part of it. You got to get kids excited. These are young kids, and you got to get them excited, you know, to want to play. And I don't think Kelly had that. He took it too much like a business trip. And, you know, another thing that really bugged me about him was he used to always receive to start the game. That made me mad as hell. I went crazy over that. Like 80% of football teams in any level receive, or they defer. If they win the toss, they defer to the second half. He never did it. The guy killed me about that. Because first of all, when you're traveling and you're playing and you win the toss and you elect to receive, the crowd is your enemy, and they're going to be loud as hell for the kickoff.
Yeah.
Whereas if you defer and you go on defense first, they can't get really loud because their quarterback has to hear and their offense has to hear. You know, it's just so many different things going on that why I disagreed with that. But anyway.
Yeah, and I also think that, and I don't have the advanced metrics to back this up. Maybe somebody who has studied this, and I'm sure there have been studies on this somewhere by somebody, would say this is a bunch of malarkey. So I'm not saying it is, but it seems to make sense that if you defer, and if both teams possess the ball the same number of times in the first half, then of course you have the ball last, and then you get the second half kickoff. And so then you have zero chance of having the ball less possessions, and you have a chance of possessing the ball at least one more time than the opponent.
That's right. And that's a very good a point that I made before. That exact point I've said.
Yeah. And that's why it's done by just about everyone.
Exactly. All right, my friend. I don't have much more to say than that. I just thought I better defend what when I said suck. I didn't really mean suck, but it's just that, you know, it's really perennially in each conference before this crazy, silly stuff merging. You know, it was mainly two teams from each conference. It was Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama, and name it, either Georgia or LSU, you know, but that's the top of the conferences. So now we're going to get to all see that in the playoffs. So it'll be good anyway. It'll be fun. And Notre Dame, I would like to see them join the Big Ten just because of this super conference. It's going to have to happen because it's going to get down from 3 down to 2, or else everybody's going to go independent, and you're going to be paid a la carte by the television stations for for the rights. They're going to bid for your game every week, as you know, down the road is what I can see happening, because the conferences are getting too big to play a full schedule. I mean, if you have, let's say 30 teams in 2 super conferences, and it'll probably be more than that. I don't know. I haven't really looked at it too hard, but if there's 30 teams in two conferences and the most you can play is 12 or 13 games, what's that going to leave as far as the college football fan, other than them bidding on the highest, pay the highest ranked teams, like, the blue bloods and things like that. You'll pay them more for each television appearance. So it's going to be a crazy thing to see coming down the road, but I see it coming down to two super conferences, and then I see it just blowing up somehow to a minor league, maybe a minor league NFL program. And I don't know. It's just curious. We're in the middle of such flux that it's too much to just project. There's too many things that can happen, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things that could happen.
Yeah. So it's interesting, though. But, in the meantime, I'm glad we expanded to 12 teams, and I'm hoping that Notre Dame is going to join. I think they're going to do it now within probably 5 years, at the most, I think, to the Big Ten, possibly like 3 years. I think by SC being in there, it's going to give incentive for Notre Dame to want to keep that going. And they might drop Navy as a result, which I wouldn't mind. Okay. Navy's a good team, but yeah,
All right, Joe.
All right.
Appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.
You too. Joe stopping by to give the Notre Dame perspective. He's excited about the safety out of North Carolina. And of course, we will allow it. Big Ten discussion with Notre Dame because they're going to be in the conference, right? Are they? What are the odds? Notre Dame in the Big Ten within 5 years. I'll put it at 70% that they're either in the Big Ten or it's already been announced and signed and sealed, and they're going to be in the Big Ten in the next couple of years after that. I'll put it at 70% Notre Dame in a conference and 95% that it's the Big Ten. Okay. Jim likes the under. And I hope the ACC survives. But it's going to be a watered down ACC, and I don't know what they would do with playoff appearances because they've given that to the group of 5 in terms of one slot. But if it's the ACC minus Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, and some others, maybe the best school, maybe the best football playing school in the ACC is SMU, Pitt, whoever. Their auto bid would probably be taken away, and then maybe they get just a conference championship and no other bids. I don't know. Let's go back to our comments that came in this week concerning the Big Ten and realignment. John W. says, if I ran the Big Ten, I'd make a major play to be a truly national brand. Bringing in Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina seems obvious. What's not so obvious is that the Big Ten has a real shot at becoming the dominant brand in the state of Texas. Seen some things about this recently. Texas Tech and TCU would be easy to pick up for 2 spots at 22 and 23, but I am willing to bet the Big Ten could also persuade Texas A&M to leave the SEC. The Big Ten going after Texas schools. I don't know if they could maintain the money distribution, the revenue distribution coming in for the games with that many additions of some schools that would not be able to maintain that type of revenue share, wouldn't be able to warrant that type of revenue share. Field says he likes the 2 10-team divisions, but dropped the 3 non-conference games. Peter says we need 3 24-team conferences with 4 6-team regional divisions, 16-team playoff that includes conference champions, plus a wild card bracket of 4 highest-ranked non-division champions. Test subject, it works better with 22 teams, no divisions, 3 protected games by rivals or locations, same every year. Play the other 18 teams on a 3-year rotation. Tom, 20 teams, 4 divisions. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, all in different divisions. Greg Nelson says, Arizona is now in the Big 12, so my concern is there. I love your Mark's desire to go coast to coast with Uber teams and an eye on basketball. In that situation, I have 3 divisions. Most intend for use in the non-revenue sports. I am surprised at how many people don't want to see non-conference games. Most people like the divisions of 5 teams, 4 divisions of 5. All right. Folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And right after our show, we've got Matt and Tim getting together for the USC Call-In Show, as you see on the banner right there. That's at 7 Pacific time. If you're not aware, we've got a new official X account, and I suggested, and it will soon be posted, a poll on our X account. Which Big Ten position unit will be the biggest key in winning the conference? So my nominees for the Big Ten position unit that would have the most impact on the conference championship were, take your choice, Michigan quarterback, Ohio State offensive line, Penn State wide receiver, Oregon defensive line. So you're going to see nothing but tons of rankings and ratings, polls, and other type of engagement to make it a whole lot of fun to take part in the Voice of College Football X network on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. There it is, the official account of the Voice of College Football Network. And then you can follow me on my personal account as well, which has been taken down to 0. So we've got to build that back up. We are excited about our new programming schedule, and we will announce that very soon to SEC and Big Ten Media Days. Thank you for that, Jackson, the Voice of College Football X account. There is the link. So can't wait to release that, but we're still putting the finishing touches. Maybe I'll take an unofficial poll here. If we do a call-in show every day, should the call-in show be at the same time every day? So there's some advantage to that. If we do the call-in show at the same time every day, of course, it gets ingrained in people's minds. Mark's on at noon every day. boom, I'm going to be there. Or if we jump it around, we will be live after the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday games. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be night call-in shows after the football games. So we will be here for that. Thank you for that, Jackson. Appreciate you. So again, we'll be here after the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday football games to do a call-in show. And if the game's boring or the game's inconsequential, we will certainly come on before the end of the game. We're not going to sit here until 1:30 in the morning just because Rutgers is beating USC 33-6, and it's dragging. So we won't do that. Joe says, Mark, your brand should have a better foot in the SEC. Well, we don't want to say this about Lou. Lou's a good guy. I think we did have a better hold in the SEC, actually. I've made this comment several times in the last year. I believe Ohio State and Michigan, thanks to all of you, you certainly have kept the banter lively and a bit vicious during the offseason between Ohio State and Michigan, but we've become a little too concentrated on those two teams and that rivalry, and we want to shake that free. We are forever going to cover the Blue Bloods and the best, but we used to have more impact with the SEC. Our videos on the SEC used to do much better. But we'll be fine. We will be fine. All right, folks. That's all I've got to say tonight. I apologize. I didn't have a chance to really plan anything in particular. We went with this topic. Again, realignment week. My pecking order for the Big Ten would go like this. Notre Dame is the prize, without question. I would argue that with anyone. If you have a point to argue on that matter, please call me. But Notre Dame is the prize. I believe Florida State is the best commodity after that. I believe Florida State's number 2. There are reasons that I believe Miami could be argued as number 3. I believe number 3 actually could be argued between Miami, North Carolina, and Clemson in different ways. But I will give the nod to Clemson. But their success might be tied to, not that he's done it by himself. I'm not saying that. It takes more than one man in all these instances. But I want to see Clemson do it without Dabo Swinney. Now, maybe he has built that brand and that program to the point where they can now just hire capably and keep that going. And of course, they have fallen off for 3 consecutive years, but they're still a force to be reckoned with. But to take the football into account, the popularity of the brand, the prestige of the brand, the academic institution, it's really a close call between Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami for me. I have said for years that if I'm the Big Ten, Notre Dame aside, they are the goal. They're the prize. Take them number 1. Notre Dame aside, I go get Florida State and Miami. I've said that for years, even before USC, Oregon, UCLA, Washington. Go get those 2. The Big Ten checks off all the boxes. They have the media might. They have the money, they have the resources, they have the academic institutions, they have the brands, they have the libraries, they've got the major TV markets, they've got the iconic brands, they've got everything except they don't have enough football players. So I'd go to Miami and Florida State. I would wrap up Florida, and that would open up recruiting. And certainly if I was the Big Ten, I would want Miami to come back to some extent and be viable. But that would not be my primary focus, is that I was picking up the Miami of 2000. No, it would be more about, okay, we've got a foothold in South Florida now. We have a school there. and that is going to help the other schools to recruit down there. There is only one school in the Big Ten that can consistently go to Florida and be in a battle for any top player. We know who that is. It's Ohio State. They're the only school that goes to Florida and is in the running for whatever top players that they want. They don't win them all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're in the running. They're the only school that's listed from the Big Ten repeatedly with top players from Florida. But this would help other schools to get in the running for those players as well. Again, I'd go after Miami and Florida State and Notre Dame. Those would be my three. If I'm in the boardroom and I'm just a football guy, the academic, what word am I looking for? The academic types, academicians. What? I've lost my ability to pronounce that word. I have lost my ability to even know how that word is pronounced. That's strange. Anyway, the presidents and chancellors, they would have to convince me on the academic portion of things, which favors North Carolina and Virginia. You'd have the basketball consideration. You'd have the media consideration. But if we're just talking about football and football on the field, and then also the extension of that would be the recruitment and the access to players. I think I already produced this video at one point. I think I did. Add Notre Dame, Florida State, and Miami. People are going to go nuts. 21 teams. Mark, that's not an even number. 7-team divisions. I worked out a nice schedule. You play the 6 teams in your division. You play 3 other games against the other 2 divisions. You've got a nice little setup. 21 teams in the Big Ten. Notre Dame, Miami, Florida State added. I could be persuaded to go another direction, but that's my thought. And that's with football and football potential in mind. And of course, the media comes with that. The academia. Well, that was not actually the word I was trying to spit out, but that is the word I should have opted for, Joe. Thank you for your help there. And academia. I was not going for that word. I'm running to the dictionary here after we get off because I'm quite embarrassed by that display. But it's on to the USC show. Scope 790. Mark, if the Big Ten takes North Carolina, do you see the SEC grabbing NC State to get a footprint in North Carolina? Well, North Carolina's a very interesting state and a prized state. North Carolina, I've not spent much time in North Carolina. But one of my best friends lives in North Carolina. He loves it. I have other friends who have either lived there or currently live there, and they love it. It's booming. They have money. It's a destination spot for families. There's no major market, but there's 5 like top 40 markets. And the population, it's booming. Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Raleigh, just booming. And yes, the SEC wants to get in North Carolina. But if they lose UNC, they would want UNC so much more than North Carolina State. I wonder if UNC was off the board, if they would go NC State and want another school to pair with them. If it would be important for them to get NC State and Duke Duke in the SEC. Boy, Greg Sankey would have a conversation to have with Duke officials to say, you're playing football in the SEC. We don't need another Vandy. This is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do this. You got to present a stadium renovation, A, B, C, D, E, all these things. And maybe Duke's not up to that. It's a small school. And of course, Wake Forest, Duke, those size schools have difficulty. They actually do an exceptional job of competing in football, considering the drawbacks. Look at Wake Forest. They have a stadium of probably 55,000, and they've got a student population of 6,000. Somebody can check me on that. That's a guess. It's something like that. If every student at Wake Forest shows up for a game, they fill up a couple sections in the corner. So Wake Forest does rather well. I'm impressed with these schools that are able to play. Wake Forest would be one of the few that they just impress me. I admire them so much to be able to play at the level that they do, considering the circumstances. It's almost like my admiration for the military academies. That astounds me, how they are able to compete. Jason says that Wake Forest Stadium only holds 31,000. Really? Okay. Jason, of course, I believe you, but I'm still going to look it up. Really? 31,000? Is it Truist? It's a Federal Credit Union Stadium. 31.5. Look at that. Okay. Well, what's the enrollment? So I stand corrected. The first thing out of my mouth was going to be 40, because I was thinking about the stadium. It reminds me of when I first started covering the SEC. I still remember the first day I went to Scott Field in Starkville at Mississippi State. I had just arrived there, just got the job, sports department there at the CBS station there. And I went out to Scott Field and probably for a press conference. And just remember looking at the stadium, and it's completely different now. They've closed it off. They've added seating. They've modernized it. Then it just looked like a huge, enormous high school stadium. And the seating was around 42,000. So anyway, the enrollment at Wake Forest is 8,900. So let's say 9,000. So again, if everyone goes to the game from Wake Forest, they can't fill a third of the stadium. Tim, we've been talking it up all night. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific with Tim and Matt on the Big Call-In Show. So head on over there. We've done our due diligence here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. We will be pumping out the content over the weekend. Don't know if we'll be live. The next live show for sure from me is with these two knuckleheads on Monday night with Matt and Tim. That's the next one for sure. But more than likely, I'll be showing up before that. We will stay on the realignment talk. I'll bring out some other models, some other recommendations, and some other possibilities. And we may start some fall camp previews as well. I think we may get on that. All right. And the in-season program schedule is on its way. You will hear about that in the coming weeks. We are 3 weeks away from conference media days as well, so we'll be all over that. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Again, we are just 90 minutes away from Tim and from Matt on the USC Call-In Show. We'll see you over there.